In 1783, the Marquis de Lafayette called Philadelphia a worldly city whose exploits will fill the pages of books for generations. Nearly 200 years later, Lafayette's prophecy was fulfilled. 1976 saw many stories emanate from Philadelphia. Some were about familiar people and events. Others were only once in a lifetime. During America's 200th birthday, Philadelphia was the center of attention as people from all over journeyed to the city for a glimpse at history. Much of the local citizenry reaped satisfaction from the heralded feats of a championship team. But other stories took on a more somber tone, casting a pall on the star-spangled celebration. Perhaps Philadelphia's most interesting tale was a little one, the saga of Rocky Balboa. Rocky was a ham and eggs boxer from South Philly who had just one goal, a chance to compete against the very best so that he could measure himself as a man. Rocky's story paralleled another group of city athletes, the Philadelphia Eagles. These men, like Rocky, were not always the most gifted players in the game, but in their first season under coach Dick Vermeil, they had something to prove, that they could do battle against anyone in football and come away with their heads held high. Outmanned but never out-hustled, the Eagles created their own spirit of '76. From this would come a story that they could look upon with encouragement and pride.
Gentlemen, the Philadelphia Eagles brought you here for one reason, to provide you with an opportunity to make an NFL football team. I hope to heck you're prepared to take advantage of this opportunity. The Philadelphia fans are the most loyal fans in the country, and they deserve the best. We're going to work you hard, teach you, and demand a lot of you physically. The Eagles will never be taken for granted this season, and you have approximately 5 to 6 weeks to prove whether you can play in this league. Best of luck.
But luck was not to be with the Eagles as they struggled through a difficult and frustrating preseason. After a disappointing season opener at Dallas, the Eagles returned home desperate for victory. Against the New York Giants, Philadelphia's Firebrands crafted a memorable performance. So thorough was the Eagle domination that the Giants did not even come close to scoring until the final minutes. It was Dick Vermeil's first professional victory, a win shared equally with his athletes and followers. A packed house and a national television audience focused their attention on Rainy Veterans Stadium a week later. The opponents were the rugged Redskins, but the Eagles showed them little respect. Philadelphia's runners found holes where none existed, and then relied on brute force to build a 10-0 lead. Eagle celebration was cut short as Washington scored 17 unanswered points. With less than 2 minutes remaining in the game, Philadelphia needed a touchdown to tie. A remarkable Eagle comeback brought about the first overtime game in Monday Night Football history. And although the Redskins did eventually prevail, they knew they were lucky to win. Down in Dixie, the Eagles gave Atlanta a taste of Yankee hospitality. Second half comeback Southern fried the Falcons into submission and gave Philadelphia their second win. But that game was merely a barnyard cockfight compared to the ruffled feathers incurred when the Eagles battled the Cardinals. St. Louis took the first match with little trouble, but in the return engagement 4 weeks later, the Eagles were much less cooperative. Driving for the winning score late in the game, Eagle hopes were dashed when Lady Luck turned her back on them. Philadelphia had the distinction of playing both Super Bowl participants in 1976, but on each occasion it was the Eagles who scored first. Against the eventual world champion Raiders, it was an alert special teams play that set up a first period Philadelphia touchdown. However, Oakland simply had too much firepower to contend with, and the Eagles soon joined the list of 15 other victims who fell to the Raider assault. Buoyant optimism was very much in order in Week 9 when the Eagles met the Giants in the Meadowlands. The Philadelphia defense easily played its best game of the season. Although playing with reserves in some key positions, the defense battled vigorously, notching the first team shutout since 1968. For years a troubled spot, the defensive line showed signs of coming around in '76. Depth was provided by four-year pros Bill Dunston, number 61, and Pete Lazatich, number 73. Right end Will Wynn, number 71, was a leader among the front four, causing his foes disruption with annoying regularity. taking some of the heat off Wynn was left tackle Manny Sistrunk, whose acquisition from the Redskins turned out to be a pretty good deal. He led the front four in both tackles and sacks. Left linebacker Frank LeMaster, number 55, solidified his starting spot with 171 tackles. At the other flank, John Bunting had his finest season yet as he dropped opponents nearly 200 times. Said one runner, "When Bunting hits you, it doesn't feel very good at all." The secondary was manned by cornermen John Outlaw and Al Clark, along with safeties Randy Logan and team co-captain Bill Bradley. With reserve strength from Tommy Campbell and Artemus Parker, the unit put on a combination acrobatic and strongman act. However, the core of the defense lies with Bill Bergey. Pittsburgh's Jack Lambert notwithstanding, Bergey is the finest middle linebacker in pro football. Again, an all-pro selection last year, Bergey is what one coach called the kind of player every team wants, but rarely is lucky enough to have. What drives him? What makes Bergey run?
So many times they've labeled me as a demon with a killer's instinct, a madman, an animal that ought to be caged. This is the writers and the media, and they like to say soupy things like that so they can sell whatever they have to sell, but I don't like the word mean as much as I like the word intense, I guess.
Intensity, a favorite word of Coach Vermeil's, and a characteristic that aptly depicts the style of Bill Bergey.
I can't explain it. I really don't know how I can even put it into words, but there's just something that happens inside me, and come about 1 o'clock Sunday, I'm really ready to just about explode.
Defensive tackle Carl Hairston, 7th round draft choice. Fullback Mike Hogan, 9th round pick. Halfback Herb Lust, a 10th round selection. All three were bona fide sleepers in last year's draft, but were active participants 6 months later. Hogan especially was the most pleasant surprise. Despite missing 7 games with injury, he still led the team in rushing. No one knew Mike Hogan a year ago. They certainly know him now. For most rookies, though, it is the special teams where they see the most activity. First-year men like Terry Tartolo and Dennis Franks join veterans Ehlers, Bleemer, Nelson, Mahalik, and Marshall in suicide squad servitude. One member of the special teams was Vince Papale, a local track and field star who never played football in college. His youthful naivete prompted him to send a tryout letter to the Eagles. Remarkably, they accepted, and Papale made the team, writing an enchanting Philadelphia story of his own. Although Papale did not catch a pass or score a touchdown in 1976, his exuberance weaved well into the fiber of the team, and the fans loved it.
I suppose you could call me a semi-native Philadelphian, in as much as the fact that I've grown up outside of Philadelphia, just about 8 miles south of Center City, in a small town called Glen Olden. And I pretty much identify with the city of Philadelphia simply because I've lived around here all my life. Tommy McDonough was my idol, and I think I used to drive my parents crazy by throwing a football around the house all the time. I pretty much emulated Tommy McDonough when I was in high school. I had season tickets for 8 years up until 1975. Well, now I don't need season tickets because Mr. Toast lets me in for nothing. I'm just thankful I'm in Philadelphia so I can do my thing in front of my people.
A story like Papale is especially gratifying and meaningful for Coach Vermeil.
Vince Papale made our football team because he had football talent, and secondly, because he's a highly motivated guy. And I really think some of this motivation came from the Eagle football fan. They identified with Vince, and rightfully so.
I hope to be a Philadelphia Eagle for 3 more years, but if it doesn't happen, if it's not in the cards, I won't regret anything that's happened to me up to this point. I'm just as happy as I've ever been in my life. It might shock some people to hear this, but if I were cut by the Eagles tomorrow, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Of course, I would miss the guys in the team and, of course, miss the game. But all I wanted was an opportunity, just one shot to play against the best, to play in the NFL. The Eagles gave me that opportunity, and for that I'm eternally grateful.
The Eagle offensive line was a much improved unit last season. Center Guy Morris, tackle Stan Walters, and ex-Baltimore Colt Ed George, transformed tackle Jerry Sizemore, and guard Wade Key. These men led Eagle backs to their highest team rushing total in 12 seasons. In addition to their ball-carrying duties, rookies Hogan and Lusk and veterans Tom Sullivan, Dave Hampton, James McAllister, and Bill Olds all figured prominently in the passing game. But 1977 will bring a new source of passing power to Philadelphia. Joining Roman Gabriel at quarterback is Ron Jaworski, the Polish rifle. Jaworski comes to the city of brotherly love with a remarkable record. He has never lost any professional game in which he has played. He has style. He has ability. His outlook on football is refreshing. But most important, Ron Jaworski is a winner. To get Jaworski, the Eagles traded tight end Charles Young. But having another tight end like Keith Crepsley made the exchange all the easier. Jaworski will love the huge target of Harold Slim Carmichael. In addition to leading the team in catches and touchdowns, the H-bomb extended his string of consecutive games with at least one reception to 64. That mark is tops among active players. On the other side, the Eagles have a speedy threat in number 85, Charles Smith. His per-catch average was the best on the team, and all four of his touchdown grabs were long-distance calls. In the season's final game, the Eagles met the expansion Seattle Seahawks. Completely healthy for the first time all season, Philadelphia turned it on full blast. With 100-yard performances from Tom Sullivan and Mike Hogan, the Eagles pushed forward and never looked back. Charlie Smith put the Eagles in scoring range early, then was permitted the honor of finishing the task himself. The Eagle defense swarmed mercilessly over the Seahawks, forcing frequent drive-ending mistakes. The lopsided win allowed Philadelphia to finish the season on a positive note. The story, although not entirely joyful, was successfully concluded. Philadelphia's most famous hero of 1976 could look back on his achievement with the satisfaction of knowing he had done his best, even in defeat. Like Rocky, the Eagles too will have moments to remember, but it cannot and will not end here.
It was our goal in 1976 to give every Philadelphia Eagle football player an opportunity to prove to us what he could do. Many took advantage of that opportunity and played good, intense football for 14 games. We think we can improve in the 1977 season. Rocky was satisfied with his one shot at the title. We're looking forward to a rematch.